Good Monday morning, and welcome to Good News York. I guess I would consider this a special edition because we're finally breaking in my home studio. Yes, Mike Brindisi coming to you. We are without Matt again today. He is out bullying some school children, so he won't be with us. But I'm here, kind of. I'm not in our studios in East Syracuse. I'm home in Ithaca, in my home studio. And before I took the job at Growth Mode and at Good News York, I built this studio for this reason, and today I finally get to do that with you. So here I am. If you notice, I'm wearing what you might think is a New Jersey Devils shirt, but I'm not. What I'm wearing is more special than that. This is a Utica Devils hockey shirt, and the reason is, I don't know, sometime last week we started talking about hockey, I think, or something. And I mentioned the Utica Devils. And now I'm a New York Rangers fan when it comes to the NHL. And the New Jersey Devils are one of their rivals. So it is very weird for me to wear this. But at the same time, as I was growing up and, became a Rangers fan, I felt like in my circle of Rangers fan friends, I was the only one that wasn't completely disgusted by the New Jersey Devils. And that was because there was a bit of nostalgia attached to that team. And that's because when I was 5, 6 years old, my dad would take me to Utica Devils games, which if you're from the area, from that area, you know how big of a deal that was. I mean, I saw Martin Brodeur, Hall of Fame, one of the greatest goalies of all time, play in Utica. I didn't know it then, but what he would end up becoming. But it was just so cool. And I love the Utica Comets now. I don't live there, so I don't get a chance to go. I would. And what they have done with the Odd and that entire hockey club is absolutely insane. Robert Esch, former goalie of the Philadelphia Flyers, but from, I think, Whitesboro, after his NHL career, came back, bought, he's one of the owners, if not the owner. They have an insane sports bar attached to the Odd now. They renovated the Odd. They have a soccer team in there. It's bananas what it's become. But this is special because this was my childhood. This is what got me into hockey. And I'll say this: I don't know what I would do when it's the Utica Comets versus the Syracuse Crunch. I struggle for obvious reasons. But yeah, so we talked about that on the show, and then I went online to look for Utica Devils merchandise, couldn't find it, and I think I got this in some Etsy shop. So probably some 9-year-old overseas made this, but so thank you, kid. I absolutely love it. Speaking of hockey, I do want to mention this too. People don't realize how great Cornell hockey games are. I love living in Ithaca. It is a really magical place. If you ever get a chance to visit here, it doesn't make sense. It's just this beautiful little cultural, liberal, artsy hub in the middle of farmland, and I think that's its charm. I went to see Mark Norman this past weekend at the State Theater right here in Ithaca, and like many other comedians and many other musicians that have visited Ithaca, they have always said, they always say on stage, like, what the hell is this place? This is amazing. Because when you're driving into Ithaca, especially when you're coming up from the city, it's like Deliverance. I mean, it is very scary what's going on the outskirts of this town. But then boom, Ithaca appears, and it's a great place. But the one thing, that I do regret about living in Ithaca is that I don't, I can't just say on a Tuesday night, hey, let's go to a Ranger game. Let's go to a Yankee game. Let's go to a whatever game. The closest thing we have is Cornell Hockey. And personally, I've always thought that hockey I think it's the greatest live sport. I mean, football, it's hard to argue with football, but even in football, you got to stop, you got to drink the water, you got to get in the huddle, right? It's actually not that bad, but I have to exaggerate. Hockey is just nonstop action. And on top of that, they're the toughest motherfuckers in any sport. Because there's always that argument, right? Like, who are the greatest athletes? Who are the top? I don't know about greatest athletes. I mean, I think they're all great. I think tennis, if you want to talk underrated, just overall athletes, watch a tennis match with some of the greats. the endurance, the stamina, the way they slide and spread their legs and rip their groins apart. But as far as just like action and just being interesting, just hockey is where it's at. It's just the best. And the thing about Cornell hockey is, the sport itself is great. But if you're in the last row at Liner Rink, you're essentially still in the absolute first section next to the ice in any other arena. Like the last seat, it's that old saying, which I hate people overuse. They overuse it all the time. Or not a bad seat in the house. But it's true. And then people fight, which is great. You got to love fights. But what the real allure to Cornell hockey is all of the pre and in-game traditions that the students do. There's this section right across from where we always sit. I forget which letter, doesn't matter. You'll know. It's where the Cornell band is, and it's where all the students are, and they just have, for example, when they do the starting lineup of the visiting team, every student pulls out a newspaper and puts it in front of their face and shakes it, and then when they're done, they crumple it and throw it on the ice. They have these certain chants that they do. My absolute favorite is in between plays, a lot of times goalies will just kind of like skate back and forth, and just do whatever, stretch out, they're just waiting for, the break to be over. And the students will go, skate, skate, skate as he's skating. And then they'll say, bend over, bend over. And they do not stop saying bend over until the goalie finally gets set and bends over right before the play starts. I'm not giving it justice because sometimes these goalies, it's a long break and they are just saying bend over. They are committed 100% for like 2 minutes, which is an eternity if you think about it. So that's just many of the things. My point is, if you ever get a chance, you're in the area, a Cornell hockey game will be worth every penny, and it is just as good, if not better, than any pro hockey game that you'll attend. So shout out to the Utica Comets, the Utica Devils, and Cornell Big Red, and Syracuse Crunch, to be fair. Now, again, it's Mike Brindisi on this Monday edition, weird edition of Good News York. We're breaking in my home studio. The reason I am home is my daughter's sick, and kind of sick of Danny. So, so here I am. I'm just kidding. I love you, Danny. Danny is, shout out to Danny Tripodi, our producer. He's there making this happen. Had to wait for my ass to get on here. I want to talk. I didn't mean for this to be very sports heavy, but usually when Matt's not around, that's my chance to do it because, Matt, sports ball, he doesn't know, and that's fine. That's why I love him. But I thought it would only make sense to just kind of do a quick post-NFL draft recap because I did the draft special, which thank you guys for watching and writing in, and it ended up being one of my favorite episodes. It was a lot of fun. First thing I want to talk about is your Syracuse Orange. They had 5 or 6 guys end up getting drafted into the NFL. A couple were undrafted. But shout out to our man Orande Gadsden, tight end for Syracuse Orange. He went in the 5th round, 165th to the Chargers. And I'm going to tell you right now, you never know when these guys get drafted if they're going to play at all, if they're going to play a little bit, if they're going to start, if they're going to be a backup. I think you're going to see Gadsden quite a bit. They need a solid tight end, and he was one of my underrated tight ends in the draft. Huge at pass catching downfield. Kyle McCord, that's the one everyone loved, our QB1. He ended up going to the Eagles, 181st, 6th round, which makes complete sense. If you didn't know, he graduated from St. Joe's Prep in Philly. So it's kind of his, he's going back home. It just makes sense. And I argued with a lot of my friends who are also Syracuse fans. I kind of had to drop reality on them, Well, when is someone going to draft McCord? When is someone going to draft McCord? I love him. And I went, listen, you're being a homer, and I get it. I love it. But for me, McCord, his ceiling is like Andy Dalton, right? And I think maybe his floor is Mitch Trubisky, and that's okay. And he might start and he might do well. I think he will be a better career backup, which is why he went to the Eagles. I mean, obviously, Jalen Hurts is not going to be going anywhere anytime soon, and he's home. I did kind of hope the Bills did draft him late for the same kind of reason. He wouldn't be home, but he would be, still in the Syracuse area. But that's awesome. Allen, running back. One of the only running backs, one of two running backs in the NCAA who had 1,000 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards. Only two. He's one of them. He went 236th to the Jaguars, who had an insane draft. And then Fadil Diggs, 238th to the Saints. Shout out to our undrafted players that went to to their respective teams after. Offensive lineman Savion Washington and linebacker Marlowe Wax went to the Chargers. Let me say that again. Offensive lineman Savion went to the Washington Commanders. Linebacker Marlowe Wax went to the Chargers. I can't ever read my writing. And our defensive back / linebacker Justin Barron and Elijah Stinko Clark went to the Cowboys. And then lastly, Clarence Lewis, defensive back at Syracuse, went to Tennessee. So shout out to our Syracuse boys. I'll make this fairly brief. I want to talk about the draft grades. Man, you're gonna have your own feelings if you're a draft dork like myself and you watch the whole thing. And there's gonna be a million websites that give you different grades. But I will say they do a good job of pretty much giving you overall the same grades across the board. I think some of the best grade, some of the drafts that stood out to me, the Bills, Falcons, Panthers, Bengals, Browns, Cowboys, Texans. And then my three favorites that I think really just cleaned house were the Raiders, the Titans, and the Patriots. There's one team I hate more than anything. It is the Patriots and the Jets. The Patriots took almost every guy I wanted on the Bills. It's really unbelievable to me. Let me pull up if I can. Why is this? There we go. Let me jump to the Patriots real quick here. I wonder if there's a weird. I'm not going to share my screen, but I don't even know if I can. Let me get to the Patriots and just why? Why the Patriots? That's the thing. I know all the guys I want aren't going to go to the team I want them to go to, the Bills, but why is it that almost all of them went to my least favorite team? New England Patriots, they drafted Will Campbell. Bills didn't need a tackle. That was just obvious. They drafted Travion Henderson, who, if you watch the draft special, that was my absolute favorite running back in the entire draft. And on top of that, the Browns had a chance to draft him and drafted Travion Henderson's backup, which I'll talk about in a second. One of my favorite receivers in the draft that I wanted on the Bills, Kyle Williams, went. They drafted Jared Wilson, who I thought would be a great late pick as a center. Joshua Farmer, defensive line. Edge, Braden Swinson. These are all guys I talked about on the draft special. So it hurt. It hurt. But they had one hell of a draft. Some of the drafts that were kind of lame. Vikings, Saints, 49ers. I don't know how I feel about those drafts. Not nothing flashy, but also didn't address all their needs. Just kind of blah. Also, wide receiver Jackson Meeks from Syracuse did go to Detroit undrafted. I forgot to mention that. Now to talk about some of the surprises from the draft. And let's be obvious about the first one. Shedeur Sanders. My God. Even if you didn't watch the draft and you were on social media, specifically X, you probably saw what was going on. Shedeur Sanders is Dion Sanders' son. Dion Sanders being one of the most polarizing and probably one of the greatest NFL players of all time, known for being very cocky, very confident, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So there were a lot of analysts that had him mocked, including myself, to the first or second round. I'm not an analyst, but I too thought he would go first, second round. He did not end up going until I think the fifth round. But But what was crazy about it was the reaction. Look, Shedeur Sanders is good, okay? If you took Sanders off the back of his jersey and you just looked at the prospect, you would see here's an above-average quarterback. He's accurate. Didn't have a great O-line, so he was always scrambling for his life. Not the strongest arm, but again, he has accuracy. He's clearly got confidence. And on top of that, he has the intangible, the mentality of what it takes to be a pro in some respects. Shutting out the negativity and always focusing on the positive. But with that comes overconfidence, and with that comes an entire crew of people, which would be his father and his father's crew and the media and that headache. So was it a surprise that he slipped to the 5th round? Yeah, I didn't think he'd slip that far. But it was the reaction that blew my mind. Mel Kiper had a fucking meltdown. I mean, I've never seen him go unhinged like he did. Mel Kiper's the -- draft analyst. He has been for decades on ESPN. This guy was melting down. And I said to my buddy, I think Mel Kiper wants to sleep with Shedeur Sanders. What's going on here? And my friend made a good point. He goes, no. He had Shedeur Sanders going number 1 overall. Now, to put that in perspective, he's probably the only analyst I heard or saw that had Shedeur Sanders going number 1. Everyone knew it was going to be Cam Ward. So it was less about Mel Kiper wanting to bang him, more about this guy's fighting for his reputation up there. But as it got further and further, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, he had a meltdown. And if I had the ability, this is where I would cut to that meltdown, which maybe I can. Danny, can I share the screen on here, or is that a whole deal? Probably not.
I think you can.
You think I can? I think I can. Maybe in the future, because I don't want to mess around with that. But anyway, I guess we could cut it in post-production. But that's something to think about for the future, by the way, if we ever do this again. So Mel Kiper has this entire meltdown, and he's fighting for his life. And now the reaction to the reaction is he should be fired. That he's completely unhinged. What an embarrassment. Here's the thing. It was cringy. He did have a meltdown. It was kind of embarrassing. But the guy, he put his name on this, and he's supposed to be like the guy. I don't know where we've gotten to now in pop culture, in society, where like the new thing is if somebody does something that's not to your liking or says something not to your liking, that we should call for their job. Now, look, I get it. With the cancel culture, sometimes it's warranted. Sometimes people do and say some really messed up shit. And it's hard to keep your job after saying something so offensive or insulting or hate-filled, right? Those are the kind of moments where you go, But to want Mel Kiper fired because the dude thought, it was ridiculous that the NFL would allow him to slide to the 5th round, I just think you got to pick your battles. And here's the other thing. Mel Kiper did, I think the part that really rubbed people the wrong way is when he said the NFL draft, the NFL, the league has evaluated quarterbacks wrong for decades. They don't know what they're doing. That's a little rough, bud. I think that they're doing just fine. And Louis Riddick kind of handled Mel very well and kind of countered him. Here's the bottom line, and I'm with Louis Riddick on this. I am surprised that he slipped to the 5th round, but this is not a race thing. We have to be careful of when we're going to use race as a reason as to why something is or is not happening. And I say that because racism is a very big problem in this country, in the world. We all know that. But when we use the race card, as they call it, in places where maybe it doesn't apply, that waters down the whole movement to end racism. we have to be careful because, again, it is a problem. But when we point our finger and say that's what this is about, when it isn't, the people that don't really understand and aren't open-minded enough to listen to why racism exists and how we should get rid of it, that's going to make them do the eye roll and say, see, everything's about race. It wasn't a race thing. The NFL is one of the most, I'm trying to find the right word. Racism, they have led the fight in ending racism. The league is predominantly filled with people of color. The number one draft pick is a person of color. It struck me as an odd thing to throw out there. But enough about that. Let's talk about why he may have slipped to the 5th round. Again, you take the name off his back, okay? He's good. He's good. He's not great. He's got the potential to be great, but he's not great. Why would he slip to the 5th round? If you go back and you look at some of the footage, there's a clip that surfaced of him and the number one draft pick, Cam Ward, who went to the Titans. They're in a mini camp where they're training before the draft, and they get into it. And you can kind of see a side of Shedeur that, well, everybody's aware of, where he talks a big game. He gets in people's faces. And Cam was doing his part too. You also have to take into consideration there were many reports that Shedeur had bad interviews with teams in the pre-draft process. He rubbed people the wrong way, people that matter, people that were going to draft him. Now, I don't agree with that. It's always an anonymous source. Put your name on it. If you're gonna call the kid out, put your damn name on it. I don't agree with that. But my point is, this isn't about race. This isn't about anything other than teams didn't want to take a chance on a guy who they weren't in love with. If you're going to draft a quarterback, you got to be in love with that quarterback, that prospect. And they weren't. And on top of that, let's say you are in love with him. You're not just drafting Shedeur Sanders. You're drafting all of the hype, all of the media circus around him. And for a lot of teams and organizations, that's going to be a huge distraction in the locker room, outside of the locker room. And you damn well know that Dion's going to be there chirping in the ear of the general manager or the coach or the owner. People don't want to deal with that shit because the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? Do you really want to go through all that and for a guy that's going to maybe be really good? So that's my thoughts on Shedeur Sanders. And I'll tell you this. Maybe, and this might be a stretch, but maybe this is a good thing for him. Because I don't want to say he's a kid that's had everything handed to him. He obviously had to work to get to where he is. But let's be honest, he's Dion's kid, right? And he's probably had an easier path than some kids with the same skill set, So one argument I heard from Tiki Barber was, a lot of these college kids, especially with the NIL deals now, they don't want to grind as hard, and they don't feel they have to grind as hard. And a kid like Sanders certainly is in a situation where he probably feels like, I don't have to grind as hard. Well, maybe this is the chip on his shoulder that he needed. And he's going to bust his ass even harder than he would have had he had gone first round. Because now he's going to want to prove the haters wrong. So maybe this I don't want to say it was kind of something they thought of ahead of time. Teams going, let's make him wait so that we can give him a chip on his shoulder. But I'm just saying, because it happened that way, maybe now they'll get the best out of him. All right, I'll wrap up the draft talk with this. Here's a couple surprises. One, Shedeur. Surprises of the NFL draft. Surprises of the 2025 NFL draft. I'm re-saying it, so in case we clip it out. Here's some surprises of the 2025 NFL draft. Obviously, the Shedeur thing. Not a huge deal, but the Bears taking Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, over Tyler Warren from Penn State. They were ranked 1 and 2. Tyler Warren being 1, Colston 2. Bears must have had a better grade. Surprised everybody with the, I think, 12th pick, 9th pick. Either way, their pick with Colston Loveland. So when something like that happens, they're always going to be compared side by side throughout their career. You know, they're tied together. They would have been anyway, but especially now that the number 2 got drafted before the number 1. So I'm curious to how that plays out. I think both are great. So I think they're both going to have good careers. But it's definitely going to be some sort of a competition, whether they want it to be or not. Cleveland's trading out of the second spot. Now, I thought Cleveland, like many others, I thought Cleveland was going to stick at number 2 and draft Travis Hunter, the unicorn that he is. They slid down to the 5th. And the first thing I thought was, well, the Browns be browning. What are they doing? But looking back, they traded down to the 5th spot. Jacksonville comes up, gets Travis Hunter, which Jacksonville, look out. They had a hell of a draft. And the Raiders, too. Those are 2 teams that are on the rise this season you're going to want to watch for. Bears are another. That's a different conversation. Here's my thing. They obviously, when you have your guy, you know, sometimes people go, why would they slide back? Why would a team trade up for a defensive tackle in Mason Graham from Michigan? That's who Cleveland took. At the end of the day, when you strip it all away, when you have your guy and you want your guy, you go get him, no matter what it takes. And let's be honest, Cleveland's smart. They're sitting there at 2. They're like, look, we want Mason Graham. We know the Giants aren't going to take Mason Graham. Actually might have been a little risky. They could have, because they did go defensive line in Abdul Carter. And then at number 4, they thought, hey, Patriots are going to go offensive tackle. They're not going to go Mason Graham. Also could have been risky. But they slid down, they gained more picks, and they got the guy that they wanted to begin with. So I thought that was great. Something that really surprised me, again involving Cleveland, because Cleveland beat Clevelanding, Browns beat Browning. They took the running back from Ohio State, Judkins, over Travion Henderson, who was my favorite running back in the entire draft. They essentially drafted his backup at Ohio State while Travion Henderson was still on the board. They had a higher grade on Travion Henderson's backup than they did Travion Henderson. That one surprises me more than the Bears tight end thing, because those 2 prospects were closely, graded. And Judkins is going to be probably a very good running back, but to me, Henderson was clearly better. So, Browns fill in the hole that they have where Nick Chubb was, but that was very surprising. Green Bay and Houston drafting 2 receivers, or just drafting the receivers that I wanted the Bills to have. They went receiver heavy. They gave 2 young quarterbacks in Jordan Love and CJ Stroud what they needed, which is what I wish the Bills would do sometimes. I think the Bills have done a great job of surrounding Allen with talent on the line to protect him, which is probably more important. And they've given him pass catchers. They've given him, they've given him guys that can block. For example, the Bills drafted a tight end in the, the 5th round, Jackson Hawes. And he's not a flashy pass-catching kind of tight end, but he's the best blocking tight end in the draft. And that tells me, especially with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid there, they didn't need tight end for pass catching. They needed someone who could block. And I'm really happy with that pick. But with that being said, I guess it's just hard to see franchises surrounding their QB with possible elite, strong wide receiver talent. And it just seems, it comes across like the Bills, they've done that with Diggs and these other guys. Look, they've scored 30-something points a game, especially in the last 8 games of the season last year. So on paper, you're like, they don't need a receiver. They're good. And they picked up Joshua Palmer from the Chargers and Laviska Shenault. So I guess what I'm saying is, I love what the Bills did in the draft. Absolutely love. In fact, if you were, following on social media, I was calling who they were going to pick. I'm starting to do that thing too, where I think I can be the GM because for the last, 4 years, I always at least get one of the picks right on the nose. I picked like 3 or 4 of the guys that I wanted, and I called it. So I'm just bragging a little bit. But yeah, look, I love what they did. The Bills obviously needed defense heavy. There were holes. The only real holes we had were on defense, and they did. They filled them. They added depth. They got great prospects. But the wide receiver, they did draft one in the 7th round. I have no idea who that is. So it's not like they didn't address it. I think what stung a little bit for Bills fans was that, you're watching teams, like I said, like Green Bay and Houston was it Green Bay, I think? Or was it Houston? One of them drafted Higgins and Noel from both teammates from Iowa State, which I thought was brilliant because not only were they 2 really good prospects, but they were teammates, which those are the intangibles, chemistry, right? They're going to have instant chemistry. So, you see these young receivers, these younger quarterbacks with franchises that are throwing pass catchers at them. And it's not that the Bills haven't done that. It just seems like it's always the one they just kind of like, yeah, we're good. And the argument, Brandon Beane went off this morning on WGR, which you got to check that clip out. It's crazy. The Brandon Beane, GM of the Bills, actually called in. He was supposed to come on as a guest. And the guys on WGR right before were just kind of talking about this. And Brandon Beane, out of character, came on and just lit into him. It's awesome. But he addressed it. And he's saying kind of what I'm saying, which is, look, they scored 30-something points a game the last 8 games of the season, almost the entire season. So it's not like they need a wide receiver, right? If it's about value, it's about need, it's about a lot of things go into why you're going to pick somebody. They didn't feel that there was a receiver of value at the place they were picking, and that's it. You got to remember they picked up Lavica Shenault. They picked up, my gosh, I'm blanking out. They picked up Lavica Shenault, and they picked up Josh Palmer from the Chargers. They lost Matt Collins and they lost Amari Cooper. I think, they're okay. And there's still time. There's going to be undrafted free agents. There's guys on the practice squad. And, look, don't forget about Curtis Samuel. So I thought they had a fantastic draft overall. I would have liked to have seen, one of those mid-round receivers, but it is what it is. With that being said, lastly, I just want to talk, we're talking about surprises of the NFL draft, 2025 NFL draft. Now, I did call that the Giants or the Browns would trade back in, maybe even Pittsburgh, but I didn't think they had the capital, would trade back into the first round and grab Jalen Milroe. Maybe they would grab Shedeur Sanders. There were rumors that it could be Dart. I didn't think so because at the time Sanders was still on the board, and I do believe, Milroe was as well. The Giants did trade back in, and they took Jackson Dart. Now, Jackson Dart wasn't one of my favorites, but he certainly was rated high by analysts that know way more than me. And I think he's in a really great situation because he's going to be going into New Jersey, because the Bills are the only real New York team, behind Jameis Winston and behind Russell Wilson. And I think that's an ideal situation. The league, ever since that draft where there was RG3 and Andrew Luck, where they came in the league and the teams were going, they were instantly great and they went to the playoffs. And we've seen that since with CJ Stroud, guys like that. And I get it. I get it. That we want to see. Oh, tell me it happened again.
You're good.
Oh, okay. It says your mic cut out. Oh, that must have been from before. So we've seen young talent come in at quarterback and immediately do great things. But we have to get out of that mindset because traditionally and realistically, a lot of guys, especially a guy like Jalen Milroe, are going to need time. and we got to be patient. But there are situations where these guys have to be thrown in. This is what I love about Jackson Dart going to the Giants. He can sit behind Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson and learn a little bit, because I think he's a prospect that needs that. I do think he could go out there and start right away, but I think to get the best out of him, that's what you got to do. And then the last surprise, speaking of quarterbacks, was Milroe. Now, as I said, my favorite quarterback in the draft, because his ceiling is Lamar Jackson and his floor is maybe Kyler Murray, right? Not bad. But the rawest prospect as far as decision-making and just kind of honing those skills in. I did not expect him to go to Seattle, and he did. And right now, Seattle signed Sam Darnold, and with a pretty decent contract. So I wouldn't call Sam Darnold a bridge quarterback. He's only like 28 years old, and he's had a resurgence. And now they've got a possible future star behind him. Again, another situation where he can go and learn. And as we saw last year, Sam Darnold, on record, they reported how amazing he was when he was on the Vikings. He went above and beyond to help J.J. McCarthy, the rookie, that the quarterback that the Vikings drafted last year. He went above and beyond to help J.J. McCarthy while Darnold was the starting quarterback. Not everybody does that, i.e., Favre and Rodgers. Favre did not want to help the guy that was going to end up taking his job. So I think Milroe's in a great situation. I did not expect him to go there, but looking at it now, I think it's really ideal, and I think he'll do really well there. Which brings me to my last thing that I just thought of, which is, we don't put enough stock in coaching and general managers. The Bills, I had season tickets during that 17-year playoff drought. It was god-awful. It was god-awful. The drafts were awful. The games were awful. Everything was awful. But then all of a sudden they got a new owner. And then the owner got a new general manager. And with the general manager came a new coach. And with that came players through the draft. And then they started winning and winning and winning. And when you start winning, what happens? Free agents want to start coming there. And that's how you reset a culture. And that's how you build a culture and build a winning franchise. And guys like Sam Darnold got drafted to the Jets. And I'm sorry. Right now, I'm not talking shit. It is fact. They are a horrible organization from top to bottom. Everybody knows that. They don't draft well. When they do draft well, they don't have the pieces in place to develop these guys. Now, this might change because they just had a new regime come in, which is why a guy like Darnold completely flopped. It's hard. Once a young quarterback's there and you break his spirit, it's hard to get that back when you ruin that confidence. He goes to San Francisco and then to the Vikings, and we all saw what he did last year. Arguably the comeback player of the year. I don't even remember. He might have won comeback player of the year. If he didn't, he should have. And the reason that happened is because that talent was always there within him. But it's the GM, it's the coach that got it out of him. I don't think Kyle Shanahan gets enough credit. Kyle Shanahan, the coach of the Niners, he went to the Niners for a year. Suddenly he goes to Minnesota, who Kevin, the coach, I'm blanking out, but the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, also a great coach and good with young quarterbacks. Those two guys back to back are the reason why Darnold had the season he had and why he's had this resurgence and why he just got a contract to play in Seattle. We look at it as like, oh, look at Darnold. He got out of New Jersey. He got away from the Jets. And look how good. Yes, but that's because not only did he go to a team like the Vikings with a head coach that is known as the QB whisperer, right? And just a very strong, not only a strong roster, but a strong coaching staff, was able to get the best out of him. But don't forget, he stopped in San Francisco before that, and Kyle Shanahan also known for that. So it just shows you the value of coaching, and general managers and owners as well. That's why teams like the Cowboys, we laugh at them now. They haven't done shit since the 90s. That's because Jerry Jones wants his hand in everything, and he has every right. He's the owner. But I come from the school of owners own, general managers manage, and coaches coach, players play. And that's it. And if you want to succeed, in especially in the league today, it's got to start at the top, and it's got to go all the way to the bottom in that order. and everyone's got to do their part separately. Now, obviously, owners need to be involved in decisions with the general managers and the coaches. The coaches need to be involved in the decisions with the general. They have to work together, but at some point they got to let them do their thing. And I think you'll find that when Jerry Jones finally lets go of that power, things will get better there. So, anywho, so it is Monday. It is Good News York. I'm Mike Brindisi. Again, Matt not with me. I know it's a little bit sports heavy today because, well, Matt's not here. And I felt like it only made sense to recap the draft since we did a draft special last week here on Good News York. Before we go, I want to do something else besides, sports today. And Restaurant Week. From Buffalo to Brooklyn, restaurants across New York State are going to be offering special tasting menus where you're encouraged to try some new places and dishes that you haven't tried before, which is why it's called Restaurant Week, and it lasts 14 days. You can check eatlocalnewyork.com. Again, eatlocalnewyork.com. It's got a list of all the restaurants that are participating in Restaurant Week. You've got here's a list of some. Buffalo Burger Bros in Buffalo, Spin and Savor in Rochester, Limp Lizard and Barbecue in Syracuse, Roosters in Utica, and Brooklyn Italian Roots in Brooklyn. You'll have a chance to find something that you love, okay? Because you're going to have barbecue to dessert. It's going to be awesome. So again, check out eatlocalnewyork.com. Support local businesses. More importantly, do it because we have so many good restaurants in all of New York. Obviously, New York City, we know, is one of the greatest cities to find food in the world. But for example, and I don't care if I sound like a homer, it's a fact. If you come to Ithaca, that is what we are known for in Ithaca, is our dining. You've got anything from Italian barbecue to Thai, Vietnamese, Ethiopian, Japanese, every culture, every style cuisine. More restaurants per capita than New York City. It is one thing I can hang my hat on here is the music, nightlife, and the food. And definitely check it out. Just a plug for my own reasons. I'm not attached to it, but the Ithaca Ale House, absolutely the best burger I've ever had in my life. And on top of that, you know me, giant Bills fan. I've had wings all over the country, including in Buffalo. My favorite wings on the planet are at the Ithaca Ale House in Ithaca, New York. Wings and burgers. Everything's good there, but the wings and the burgers, you got to try it. So again, go to Eat Local New York for Restaurant Week. And I believe it starts today. I don't know. I could be wrong, but just go. They'll tell you the right thing if you go to the website. Before we go, Danny, got anything for me? Any questions, comments, concerns?
I don't think so. I think we got it.
Wow. Real fucking cool of you, man. I thought you were going to give me something. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, what color is your underwear?
What's that?
What color is your underwear?
Ooh. Gray. Yeah. Gray underwear. Anyway, yes, we will be back tomorrow here on Good News York. Matt and I will be back in the studio. We are going to talk about a lot because we've just started Tuesday News Day, where I do some news articles on Tuesdays. So look forward to that, as well as, I believe, Danny, are we going? Don't you have something set up for us? We're going to get headshots or something.
Yeah, it's photo picture day.
Yeah, we're having school picture day tomorrow.
Sorry, school picture day tomorrow.
School picture day. So tomorrow, not only will you get Tuesday News Day, but we're going to talk about we're getting pictures done. Danny set this up, our awesome producer. And I'm assuming we're going to shoot some footage. So we'll talk about that, and we'll have footage of that. But otherwise, you can check me out on all social media at Mike B TV. I'll put it up on the screen. MikeBTeevee. That's how you can find me on all social media. And of course, you can find us at Good News York on all social media, goodnewsyork.com. New episodes at 5 p.m. Monday through Thursday. We love you guys, and have a great rest of your Monday. See you tomorrow.